Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to be talking about Avengers Endgame. This is my review for Avengers Endgame. There is spoilers for Avengers Endgame in this review. All right, so I saw Avengers Endgame. It opened on Thursday. I saw it on Thursday at 6 p.m. Saw it as early as you could possibly see it with my youngest son and my youngest daughter. My wife was not able to go with us. She went the next day with her friend, just because of a prior commitment, and so there was this period in the first 24 hours where the whole family couldn't talk about it. Just and we had to do the no spoilers thing, and this was rough. Endgame was rough as far as no spoilers. I'm going to give my 2 cents on spoilers. It's become a huge topic in the culture. Is when are we allowed to spoil things? So my take. For a movie, you get the weekend, right? So, movie comes out on Friday, on Monday, you can start spoiling that away. And my take on that is the people who haven't seen it by then either just don't care or they're out of luck, right? It's just the world moves too fast. But I do think it's legit to say the movie gets the whole weekend where it should be no spoilers. For television, I think the spoiler conversation should be completely over for television. You watch it live, and then honestly, I think you should be able to watch something on television at 9 p.m. and talk about it at the water cooler at 9 a.m. the next day. So I don't think there should be any the window for spoilers should be the moment. The window for spoilers for television is the moment it's done on television. The moment its first airing is done on television, talk about it. That's my take. All right, so, but I will say, Endgame was by far the biggest concern I'd ever seen for spoilers for any content. And it was legit because there was a ton of spoilers. It would, just knowing a few things would really spoil this film, right? But the people who cared about it, they saw it in weekend 1, right? They saw it somewhere in weekend 1. All right, so basically, here's my take on the film. So I want to talk a little bit I'm still going to talk about the meta level of the film a little bit before I actually get into my review of the characters and the events. All right, so Jeremy Johns, he has a fun movie review. He has a different take. His movie reviews are a little more, I think they're kind of less professional than almost any of the big guys on YouTube. Very casual approach, but he's smart and his stuff is well crafted. I like it. But he talked about the money that Endgame made. So Endgame did $350 million in the U.S. It did $330 million in China, and it did a total of $1.2 billion in a single weekend. That is unprecedented. No movie in the history of mankind has ever done those kind of numbers. It's incredible. And he explained how this happened. Basically, Endgame is the first movie to really go whole hog on the idea and the actual ramifications of having digital projectors. So digital projectors are in most theaters now, and basically once you have a digital print of a movie, you're not limited by the physical print. Like before, if you only had one physical print, you had to load that on the reels and actually run it, and you couldn't split it, right? You couldn't just make a copy easily, right? Now you can. You can make as many copies as you want, and you can put them in as many theaters as you want. You can run the movie as many times as you would like. And what was happening is there was a ton of movie theaters, and you can see this in the numbers, that were like, okay, listen, we can have 8 people go to see Shazam this weekend, or we can just shut that Shazam showing down, and we can put 120 seats in 120 people in those seats and sell out that entire cinema. So there were cinemas where people Avengers Endgame ran on every single possible screen with maybe one showing of another movie in each theater that entire weekend, right? And so it was really unprecedented, where not only were you having a hard time getting into Avengers Endgame, you were having a hard time getting into other types of movies because the other types of movies were literally being squeezed out for screen space by Avengers Endgame. And that is completely and utterly new. That has really never happened to the extent it happened with Avengers Endgame. Excuse me. So I think that was really interesting from a technology perspective, just like that we're really seeing, and it 1.2 billion in a single weekend is absolutely incredible. There are a lot of people who are thinking, well, maybe it's very front-loaded in that almost all the tickets are sold at this point because, who's going to see it on the second weekend and the third weekend? It's almost a layup that this movie will do $2 billion. The only question really is if it's going to be $3 billion. Could it be the first $3 billion movie? We don't really know the answer to that yet. We'll see if this movie has a massive drop in the second week. But the numbers were pretty amazing. It really broke every single record, right? Like, it was incredible, right? So now, how do you get there? How do you have those kind of amazing numbers? Well, Avengers Endgame was the 22nd movie in the Marvel cinema, in the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And again, Avengers Endgame is completely unprecedented. There really is nothing like what was done for this movie. There has never been a cinematic universe, a cohesive one cohesive view of a film, and all of it coming together in one final saga episode, right? And that to me, I think 90% of all of the success of Avengers Endgame and every Marvel movie is Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige is just historically important in that he is the only person who has figured out how to have respect for the source content, but how to also jettison parts of the source content respectfully and make it available to mass media, right? And if you look at Avengers Endgame, you're really seeing what people really want to see for a decade. This is how America is entertained for a decade, right? And it is unprecedented. There's really never been anything like this. And I think it really might be worth, breaking down what's in these, what's not in these, what is the secret sauce for how you make a movie series that has unprecedented success. But more than anything, I think 90% of all of the credit of the success of the MCU goes to Kevin Feige for simultaneously showing how to respect the source material, but how to bend it enough to make it accessible to mainstream audiences. That, there will be books written about that topic, without a doubt. I think they're already starting to do that, if it hasn't already happened. All right, so let's get into the characters and the events. All right, so I really feel the key character of Avengers Endgame is Thanos. Thanos was an amazing villain. He's the best villain ever to be put into any Marvel Cinematic Universe. Really, the only competition he has is Killmonger. Killmonger was a very serious villain where the stakes seemed real and actually seemed high, right? Since then, Thanos has really emerged in Infinity War and in Endgame as a major villain. So one, he had, of course he had that whole concept of, I'm going to destroy half the world so that the other half will really appreciate what they have. Thought that was kind of really interesting. The biggest thing I really liked in this film was just how effective Thanos was, both as a physical combatant, but also as an intellectual opponent, right? So as an intellectual opponent, the fact that he figured out with Nebula that the time travel was happening and was able to engage with the Avengers even as they were trying to undo his past was incredible. And he really, he's an incredible intellectual opponent, and he's also an amazing, physical opponent, right? So I thought that was really cool the way he used Nebula in order to figure out what the Avengers were doing next. And also it did show that he is a villain, right? He leverages everyone in his life to succeed at the things he wants to succeed at. And he really does, and I think that's one of the things that makes Thanos villainous is, he gestures like he has a heart every now and then, like he cares about people, but he doesn't. He really uses people as tools, right? And with Nebula, it's quite literal. She's literally like half tool, right? Like she's half object, half tangible items, right? So the half machine, right? So, but Gamora is the same. Like, so basically, I think, and there's a lesson to be learned here. Like, if you see people who are treating human beings like tools, that is a really good sign that they are villainous. They are a villain, right? It's I think it's really clear. Now, my favorite, I know it's because my favorite villain moment of the movie by far was when Thanos surged forward and was attacking Captain America, and he took that double-edged blade. Boy, I would love to hear the story of how that thing was forged. And he just tore into that vibranium, indestructible, air quotes, shield, and just tore it apart. Like, he was chipping away at it like it was wood. It was crazy. And I thought that was just such an amazing way to show, don't tell. Like, you've been telling us that Thanos is dangerous. Well, Thanos comes straight at Captain America and chips away at a vibranium shield like it's made of balsa wood. I was like, holy cows. I couldn't believe it. Like, I covered my mouth in the theater. I was like, good Lord. That, is a really, really, really good aspect. I thought it was fantastic. Absolutely loved it. So I was also thrilled that Thanos was in the movie and that we were going to get, when I figured out in the movie that we were going to get a lot more Thanos, I was like, great, let's do this, right? So I do want to talk a little bit about the events of the film. So one, the film had 45 minutes. I couldn't believe it. There's literally 45 minutes in the beginning of this movie, and I was like, man, this is boring. Like, this is so boring, because it was just a whole bunch of Captain America, Black Widow, Mark, the Hulk, Thor. No, actually, Thor really isn't in the first 45 minutes of the movie. So Black Widow, the Hulk, Captain America, War Machine, just moping around, acting sad, and talking to each other. And I was like, good Lord, did they pay did they pay like $200-300 million for this? It was really bad. And I will say, it really, the first 45 minutes of the movie are so slow and depressing. I think it really will keep me from watching the movie a lot more, like in repeats, right? Now, I will say, I firmly believe that repeat watching of movies is now truly it seems foolish, right? There's just so much content. I subscribe to Hulu, Netflix, YouTube Premium, Crunchyroll, and that's it. That's it. Like that, so that's what we are. And between those four services, I can't even possibly come close to watching all the stuff I want to watch, right? So rewatches, I just think overall rewatches are kind of a done thing. They're really, but I would struggle to rewatch this movie because I'd have to get through that first 45 minutes. Boy, was it slow. But the ending was so strong that it totally delivered and it was worth it. And the other thing is, I think this is where the Russo brothers come in. I don't think this is Kevin Feige. I think the Russo brothers are coming in and pushing. The Russo brothers would push back on studio notes that say, hey, we need to add in some action into these scenes. And I think, that's one of the things that's incredible about the Marvel Cinematic Universe is there is character building. They'll say, hey, we are going to just show an 8-minute segment of literally Black Widow eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and talking to Captain America, and you're like, oh my gosh, is anything going to happen in this? But you need that. You need that to feel invested in these characters. And so many studios try to shortcut it, right? And that is how characters are built, is these slow, plodding, word-filled scenes, right? And there's just no other way to do it. You can't really build characters through action scenes, right? You can kind of dry brush them. You can give them a little more detail, a little more resolution, but you're not going to build a character through action scenes. So, and that's really important to understand. So, but of course, the event itself of the fight at the end, when Captain America actually picks up Mjolnir and slams it into Thanos. That was one of the biggest highlights of the film. It was actually my highlight for the heroes of the film. I absolutely loved that event where Captain America was just tearing into Thanos with Mjolnir is really incredible. The fight scene between Black Widow and Hawkeye, loved it. Right, I did not like the Ronin character. It made a sense from a story perspective. It also really kind of resolved why Hawkeye wasn't in Infinity War, and there was a good. It was fine that he wasn't in there because there's so many people, and it's hard to squeeze all these stories in there. So, but I really love the fact that it made so much character sense for Hawkeye and Black Widow to fight to be the one who dies to get the Soul Stone back. And I will say, boy, there's a deep, incredibly deep message there that Marvel Cinematic Universe is putting into it, and it's saying that, hey, as a culture and as a society, we need families, right? We need people who have chosen to love someone else for the rest of their life. We need people who are having or acquiring children and then raising those children in a family structure, right? And I mean, because the reality is that I really feel like that's clearly why Black Widow fought so hard to let Hawkeye live. I do not think it was their friendship. I think it was her understanding of, I've lived this life for myself. I've gotten the things I wanted to get. What more am I going to get for myself, right? Whereas if Hawkeye lives, not only does Hawkeye have the joy of living, but his spouse is going to be incredibly happy that he's alive, and each of his children are going to be incredibly happy that he's alive. So this is really a question of 5 lives versus 1 life. That's a bold statement because I think more and more, the culture is like everybody matters the same. Family, single people, one single person is the same, value to society and the culture as 5 people, knitted together in a family unit. And the family unit overall, like, that's one of the biggest trends of our modern society. I'm very fortunate to be linked to a lot of young people through Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop role-playing games, and man, no trend is stronger right now than virtually every single young person I know saying, I do not give 2 rats about marriage, and I have virtually no interest in having children. The only exceptions to this I see are people who are attached to wealth, and it's a major trend. So I was shocked to see that trend somewhat acknowledged and pushed back against within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I really feel like if you're looking at the movie, it's very clearly saying that that culture and society are aided by having people who get spouses who promise to live together for the rest of their lives, and the loved one for the rest of their lives. They have or they acquire children, and it's a really big thing. So it's pretty significant. Yeah, so I really thought that was fascinating. Very, very interesting part of the film. The ending where all of the people who were who were ashed at the end of Infinity War, where they return, where we get to see Black Panther, where we get to see Spider-Man return, was very strong. I really liked just seeing the visuals from Doctor Strange. By the way, I don't know if I said this. This is a 5 out of 5 star movie for me. I absolutely loved it. I love and even things that I say that I don't like, that I've said that I didn't like in the film, those are, it's kind of like, the person you love their foibles as well. So this was absolutely a 5 out of 5 star movie. I absolutely loved it. But one of the things that was a little surprising to me is I do think the body count on the movie was low, right? So we lose Black Widow, we lose Iron Man. Iron Man really didn't hit me very hard because I've always been on Team Captain America, and Captain America didn't really die, right? Not at all. We do lose Captain America through age, which I thought was really interesting, and it was a really cool aspect of the film. But the Iron Man death did not really hit me that hard. I will say I did tear up when all of the superheroes returned, But I really felt, I didn't believe in my heart that there was going to be an all or nothing return, and it was an all or nothing return. They returned all of the superheroes that had died were returned, and it was a little surprising to me. I really liked seeing Doctor Strange. He was just transporting everybody in. Black Panther it was really cool to see Black Panther come back. I really love the film. I really love the film. Captain Marvel was in there. It was a really good film. I really enjoyed it. I was amazed by what they were able to accomplish with the film. It definitely was a 5 out of 5 star film for me. I guess I really only talked about the events that happened. I didn't really get a chance to go character by character, but that's okay. That's my take on the meta of the film. That's my take on the events that happened in the film. I was thoroughly enjoyed every minute of Avengers Endgame. That's my take. I would love to hear what you thought of the film. Please let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.